and I'm your classroom teacher, Professor Hicks. I'm stopping here for an update, some changes, and some comments. First of all, I'd like to remind everyone to please subscribe. My likes are doing well, my subscriptions are low, so if you're peaking, please hit the subscribe button and subscribe, for it really helps to drive the station. The views are wonderful, not complaining, and I'm happy to see where they are. So anyway, I've been posting some images from my visit to Egypt a couple of years ago, and I guess I need to first say that my visit to Egypt was a educational experience. Educational experience. I need to say that again. An educational experience. Why? Because I'm a historian, and as an historian, I need to get to places that I'm going to be talking about, research and examine and analyze it. You have to be there. My next stop is going to be Spain, hopefully, with God willing. I'll be able to get there. But Egypt was, I must say, an experience that takes a while to grasp fully with your mind, through your eyes and your senses. It also was a very long trip. It took much out of me, but that's the price that we pay when you want to teach and disseminate this information, particularly when you need to have the experience of Africa in order to talk about Africa. And mainly that's what I'm discussing. So, with that said, Egypt was an experience, but an educational one. Actually, we received diplomas and stuff as such. It was 15 or 16 days, I forget now, but it was a long time. And one of my viewers, or well, I should say, he's more than a viewer, he's a pretty good friend of mine, and he asked me a very good question. And the question was, is the culture warm and inviting? He was curious about the dress for women, and he said that he's heard much, but he wanted to know for sure. So I answered him in such a way, and I'm going to kind of read my response to you, and then I'm going to sort of take off on it. But unfortunately, Egyptian women are severely restricted to purdah, which is wearing of the veil, and are not shown in public much. I witnessed one time seeing a woman in public, and that was our hotel manager. It's important for you guys to understand, and I'm talking now off the reading. It's important to understand that you must take into consideration when you're watching images and videos of Egypt today that it is not the same people that were there yesterday. And by what I mean yesterday is the ancient times. The indigenous people that are part of Africa are not in Egypt anymore. Most of them have been pushed down to the southern parts of Egypt, whence Egypt got its glory, what we call Nubia, Sudan, Kush. And the people are there now are the people who the remnants and the who ancestors were the invaders of Egypt. Now, if you've been following me, you know that there have been several invasions in Egypt. The first one were the Greeks. I believe the Persians were next. The Byzantines might have been after that. I do know the Arabs followed. The French were there. The British were there. Egypt has had several invasions, and the people that invaded Egypt, the last of those, the Arabs, remained there. They had intercourse with the general population, and those people of the darker hue, or the more melanated ones, were sort of, how can I say, um, washed out. So, for an example, a black African Egyptian mated with an Arab of a lighter complexion, and that result was what we see there today. Just like in Morocco, my nephew travels well. He went to Morocco and told me the people in Morocco that are there now are not the indigenous people that were there 100 years ago. Like Egypt, those people have been pushed down into the southern portions, into the less um, televised portion, because you never see these people on TV, but they're just not there anymore. So with that said, you must understand that the people who are there worship a different religion than the indigenous people that were there. The Africans that were there worshipped a spirituality, something called the Egyptian mystery system. They did not have a what we call today religion, which is a man-made word and a man-made entity religion. Though eventually many of the what we call today so-called religions emanated and began in Africa, particularly Egypt, like Christianity, Hebrewism, and Islam. The practice of that is no longer going on there. So when you ask if their people are warm and inviting, I must say that for those people who I met there were not warm and were not inviting. Basically, the people that were there are Arabs. They worship a religion called Islam. The artifacts, monuments, and temples that we see there are not held in this esteem that we and many Europeans, who were there, of course, held those monuments, artifacts, and such. For them, meaning the Arabs that are there, particularly those who are hawking their materials, Egypt is a prophet. It's a prophet. Their mosques are nowhere near any of the temples, and they don't worship, they don't regard those monuments as a part of their heritage. Now, let me preface my statement. They respect the fact that these monuments are so great, but as to embrace them as theirs would not be the truth, because they did not build those monuments, nor did they have anything to do with the building of them. And it's important to understand when you go to Egypt, or when you've left Egypt, that the Arabs worship Islam and not African heritage. They are only African by name and because they live there. So the answer to my buddy's question is no, it was not inviting anymore. The hawkish attempts to force you to buy their wares is teetering on abuse. I remember one couple walking and trying to move away from the hawkers, and they continued to the point where, since it was females, I had to step in and ask the young men, please to stop, because they have no filters when it comes to hawking and trying to sell their wares. It was abusive. If anyone goes to Egypt and tells you anything different, they're not telling you the truth. Because I've read from every side of the angle, from every group, white, black, and indifferent, that the worst part of the trip were those people selling them their wares. So no, it was not warm and inviting. Not to say that the people are not or cannot be a warm and inviting people. I would never say something like that. But for those who I met there, particularly through selling and bartering, were not. Women he asked me about as well. While I was there, I only saw two women. One was our hotel manager, dressed very well, did not have the typical garb on, or purdah, as they call it, but she was in a pantsuit and dress, head covered, beautiful woman. The only other woman I saw was a woman walking across Cairo's streets, which have no traffic lights. So you were on your own by trying to cross them. We were warned not to cross the streets. And she was carrying her garbage and emptying it to the middle of the street, where was an island in the middle of the street with mounds and mounds of garbage. Now, I don't know what that's about, but that's what I saw. So women are not publicly seen there. I'm not saying they don't come out, but while I was there, I did not see many women at all. And as to their treatment, I cannot attest to, because I did not see that. But I do know that our monuments, our temples, and our artifacts are nowhere near respected as we honor them and revere them. I actually saw one hawkish person urinating by a monument. Dogs and cats are proliferate around the monuments. Cats, I believe, are a natural part of the environment there, because, you know, if you read the history of Egypt like that, cats were very important to Egypt. But they are everywhere, in the temples and everywhere. It's like their home. Dogs as well. Lots of dogs. All over the place. Very friendly too, by the way. Very friendly. Unlike our dogs, where you might get bit. I can't remember anyone being bit or bothered by the dogs. The people work very hard, by the way. I should say that. I mean, the tremendous effort they put into work and selling and bartering is it's truly something to see. Young men riding on surfboards on the side of our gigantic ships, selling their wares in the middle of the Nile. It was a very hazardous thing to do. But they did it. And they did it often, and they did it very, very well. So it's important to know and put Egypt in historical context, because it is not what we have been perceived to be on the media outlets that's been feeding us this information for so long. Nonetheless, Egypt is mind-blowing. It is something to see. And the images that I post, I hope you enjoy, but those images don't reflect everything there is to know about Egypt, particularly the black people. Now, where did we see the black people? Well, while we were in Africa, we also went to the Sudan. And there you find what I would call the original Egyptians. If you know anything about Egyptian history, and if you should know that the founders of Egypt were originally those people who came from Kush. All the pharaonic liturgical practices, all the pharaonic scriptures, papyri, thoughts, ideas were from Kush or Sudan, from deep part of southern Africa or southern Egypt. Most of the ingenious architecture, the medicines, the math, the philosophy, the science was all coming from Kush or the Sudan. That's important to know, because Egypt gets all the love, but not many people know that what Egypt has comes from the Sudan. Now, if you ever go down to Kush, you will see hundreds of pyramids. Not in the size and magnitude of what you will see in Giza Plateau, but wonderfully constructed and just as skillful. Most of its gold that Egypt enjoyed was from Sudan and deep in Africa. So when you see these images, understand that yes, it reflects the magnitude of genius, but the people who created those monuments are no longer there. They took their secrets and they left Egypt. Some of them went to Mali, some went to Nigeria, some went to Niger. The Moors, who we spoke of, I've been speaking of the last month or so, their ancestors were the people called the Garamantes. And the Garamantes are people from Egypt who, seeing the invasions, particularly the Arab invasion, fled Egypt. And they fled with their manuscripts, papyri, and documents. That is why today we still have some semblance of civilization, because all those things they took with them were the civilizing effects of what Europe eventually became the receivers of. So Egypt is a wonderful place to visit. I visited the most important things that was needed to see. One of the things I didn't do, I didn't go into Tutankhamun's burial chamber, because I thought it was, though I needed to see that, I thought it was dishonoring him. Just think about someone taking your great-great-grandmother and digging them up, or father, and putting them on display for the world to see. Well, on that particular tour, I decided to stay in the bus. And by the way, a few others with me. Because to me, I understand the excavating, to try to grasp and get an understanding about history. But what these colonizers have done, particularly the King Tut, is ghastly. So I didn't do that. But I will say that I did visit some, particularly in the Cairo Museum. Many excavations, or the result of those, are in the Cairo Museum. Today, the Cairo Museum is a new museum. It's a modern museum. It's the museum that I visited is no longer there. It was from ancient times almost. No, I shouldn't say that, but it's been there a very long time. The new museum is a lot, I understand, has a lot more to offer. And that is only from word of mouth. I wasn't there to see that, but I have to take the word for it until I can get back there again, God willing. So anyway, the announcement I need to make is that I was planning to move into Africans were the first Americans, but due to my overwhelming response to the images of Egypt, I'm going to divert from that, and I'm going to do a month-long expose on Egypt, starting with the geography, because Egypt is one of the few places where you don't understand anything about it unless you understand the geography, particularly the Nile. So I'll give you a little tidbit to keep you going. The question I want to ask is, well, let me state this first. No, I'm going to ask, Which way? No, better take that back. How is the Nile different from all other rivers in the world? How is the Nile different from all other? I'm sorry, folks. All other rivers in the world. There's two answers to that. But one is very important to understanding Egypt's history. The other is kind of like a little question to. Hopefully, you can find the answer quickly, but it's sort of a teaser, okay? But what makes the Nile different than any other river? You're going to learn a lot of things. I'm going to show you the text that we're going to be using that you could purchase, not too expensive either. That gives you a very good layman's layout of what Egypt is all about. Okay? So again, what makes the Nile different from every other river in the world? So I'll come back. I'm probably going to post this on Facebook, and I'm going to come back sometime today, and I'll give you the answer. Maybe some of you might want to comment on my comment section on Facebook with the answer. I've already set up a couple of other questions there. One was the monument that you guys call the Sphinx. And since I did give the answer to that already, is that Africans don't refer to the Sphinx as the Sphinx. And there's several reasons why. If you take a moment and look up the word Sphinx, the first thing you will know that it is a Greek reference, a Greek name. And then when you look a little further, you see what the Sphinx meant to these people. You can understand why Africans like to keep its name that is historically belongs to the Sphinx, and we call it Harem Akhet. Harem Akhet. And I believe it means, see, here I go, one of my senior moments. Oh God, I lose it right now. But it has to do with being able to see over the horizon. It's seeing over the horizon. See, this is why I have to have my books in front of me, because I have so much information in my brain that I cannot keep it all there. 2 years ago, Harem Akhet, the name would have just rolled up like this, but it's something to do with being able to look over the horizon. All right, and I'll get back to you with that later as well. But Harem Akhet is the correct name, H-E-R-E-M-A-K-E-T, Harem Akhet. That is the name, the historical African name of the Sphinx. Just like the historical name of Africa's Akhenaten. So, with that said, I'll get back to you. Remember, the question is, how is the Nile River different than all other rivers in the world? Right? And with that said, I'm going to say Ashe, and I'll see you very soon.